it's not about getting people out of their comfort zones. It's about staying in your discomfort zone. So how are you going to create a level of discomfort that is tolerable and also meaningful, not only in yourselves, but also in other people? Thank you very much for having me here. What the title of my talk today is Working Scared. And I want to talk a bit about psychological capacity and psychological safety. And a lot of people come up to me and say, what is psychological safety? Or we have a problem with it, or our organization would never adopt psychological safety. But the truth is that psychological safety, you as leaders, it is your job to create it. And oh wow, now it has double power. The reason why this is very important is because work is inherently unsafe. And you can think of it in terms of physical work, right? So what do we do when we work? When we work, what we're doing is we're changing something in order to create or extract value that is valuable and important to our survival. So we think about industries that meet our basic human needs, like the need for nourishment, agriculture, the need to be protected from the elements, the construction industry, the need to stay warm, the energy industry. These are some of the most dangerous industries there are. That work, that change, when you change something, you are trusting your belief in cause and effect. You think that if I do this, then I am going to get this outcome that I want. But the fact is that there is a range of outcomes that you could get when you change something, and some of those potential outcomes can hurt you. The same is about work that is the work that is social. It's not just, we don't just have physical needs, we have very important social needs. So in industries like the entertainment industry, industries that help us create a sense of meaning and belonging, they too are actually unsafe. We've learned that in New Mexico on movie sets, that movie sets are not these safe places. There's actually a lot of potential for physical harm, but there's also a lot of potential in our trying to seek getting our needs met, like a sense of belonging, for a lot of unsafe outcomes that are unsafe to our egos and are unsafe emotionally. So I might go up to someone and say, "Hi, my name is Martha," and they just, reject me, look at me funny, right? It is very unsafe for me to do this work right now. I'm an introvert. I used to tell Todd when I worked for him, when he would try and get me up in front of people, I would say, "There is no Martha show. Okay? There's no Martha show." Because I didn't want, it was very unsafe to have that scrutiny where you judge me whether I'm smart enough or pretty enough or, whatever that is. And all of us we work through these periods in our psychological development where we're dealing with, are we enough? Are we enough to be loved? Are we enough to be a part of things? Yeah, psychological safety is going to be really hard to talk about in my organization. It's probably because your organization hasn't fully embraced the pain that is work and that is change, and has recognized that pain is an important part of learning. Culture. There's your leadership culture. There's all of these other ways in which we create an environment where people can be curious and learn, but psychological safety is really important. It is the shared belief among a group of people that it is safe to take interpersonal risks. emotional risk, right? And it's really delicate. So let's say you have a strong safety culture, right? And that people do speak up, and you're doing a pre-job brief, and the team leader is saying, all right, guys, well, so today we have a little bit of a change. We've had an OSHA regulation change, and so we have to do this particular part of the procedure differently, and so how we're going to do it is like this. And someone comes up and says, actually, if we do that, there's going to be all of these other problems. And the leader said, yeah, the fact is that we don't have any control over that. It's a regulation. We have to do it that way. So, yeah, shuts them down. But you have a really strong safety culture, and this person's gonna continue. They feel pretty empowered to continue to speak about it and say, well, actually, no, what I want to talk about is there's this situation, and the team leader says, yeah, we can talk about that. We'll talk about it after the briefing, right? That doesn't just affect that person. They might be outraged. The whole team might be outraged because the safety culture says, wait, that was wrong. But there's still that power dynamic. There's still that moment of interaction. There's still the fact that got shut down. Nobody else, maybe, nobody else is going to speak up and going to continue to drive that fight. So that leader in that moment destroyed all of the work that you were doing around your safety culture, because it is leaders who create psychological safety. And it's not even formal leaders all the time. It is whoever is in charge of that particular interaction among that group where they are discussing their work and making decisions. And they found that diverse teams that didn't have strong psychological safety and not a strong sense of inclusion and belonging, they didn't perform very well. People were covering, there's lots of different ways in which we hide our diversity or don't engage in it. A lot of times we get experts together. Have you guys ever had a tiger team to solve a problem? You get an expert together, and the phenomenon is that those experts don't share their expertise. They just talk about what they know in common because they're trying to belong and build camaraderie and stuff. And they don't feel, because there's not a lot of psychological safety, safe saying, well, actually, I'm an expert in this, and this is what you don't know, Dr. So-and-so, I'm Dr. So-and-so, you Dr. So-and-so don't know this, right? People don't do that. We don't go into that. But the reason why you hire these people and you put them all together is to share their unique knowledge, but we don't do that if we don't have a sense of inclusivity and belonging. We can change the way that we respond to criticism and attack if we just try and figure out what's the feeling, the emotions, and the need behind that attack and that message. So my advice to you is if someone insults you, lean in and get curious and ask, tell me more. So this has happened to me before. Early when I first took the job with Harvard, I was with a bunch of friends and I was explaining what I was doing. I'm delivering corporate leadership development programs through Harvard. Oh, man. Okay, sorry. I'm going to put this down. And somebody just said, oh, yeah, classic example of those who don't do teach. And I was just like, well, what? And I took a moment, and then, I thought I had a lot of outrage, but then I just said, oh, that's interesting. What do you mean by that? Tell me a little bit more about that. And then, you're not a leader, so how do you teach leaders? And I'm like, I guess. I was once a manager. I was like, well, that's not the same, right? And I was like, yeah, okay, well, now actually you're right. Leadership and management really isn't the same. And so I engaged in a conversation, and one of the things that he brought up is like, well, it's different leading people than it is leading organizations. And then leading an organization, you're dealing with driving sort of organizational outcomes, and you're being forced to make decisions all the time with very limited information. And if you haven't done that, you don't know how difficult that is. And I said, yeah, you're right. And this was several years ago, and that is actually super valuable to me, because now I'm on the board of 2 organizations, and I have leadership positions on those boards. And he was absolutely right. It kind of sucks to be sort of the person who is in charge of decisions around the organization, and then not really managing anybody but the CEO reports to the board, and not really getting involved in the operations of things. And it gave me a whole new insight into the challenges of the people that the people that I teach have. So, and that's I think the key thing here is how we cultivate our empathy. And there's different kinds of empathy, and people misunderstand empathy a lot. But what is important to develop in yourself is curiosity, vulnerability. And I know vulnerability is a hard word, but what vulnerability does is just for you to let down your strong ego defense, which is a normal thing. You should have an ego. You should maintain your ego. You just don't want to have an ego that wants to attach to everything. But that vulnerability just lets you go, maybe I can actually understand how somebody feels, even if I'm the person who hurt them. That's my advice for you. Nothing that I said is easy. If something is simple, especially when it comes to leadership, it's usually really hard to do, and it requires you to do a lot of reflection and work. So I'm not giving you a quick answer, but hopefully I'm giving you something that's valuable.